This is all self-contained, so no other train or engine required. It is everything all in one. It ran from Ajo, Arizona to Gila Bend, Arizona, distance about 43 miles. It ran from 1926 to 1947. And in those days, the road from Ajo, a small mining town, to Gila Bend, a slightly larger town, was a dirt road and not very fun to travel by car. So most people took the motor car or train to get to, if you lived in Ajo, you want to do shopping, you take the train. So that's kind of that. So yeah, it's all very practical and everything. I think its top speed was about 45 miles per hour. And I doubt if they went that fast because the trip took a little longer than an hour. So yeah, this is a fun little car. It used originally a geared system, and we are now on the third motor of the car. The original motor died during World War II, and they had to find an old used motor because you couldn't order a new one, a war effort. They put that in, and then by the time we got it, that one wore out, so we had to put in the diesel motor. Yeah, the way it is now, it's hydraulically driven. Back then it was a series of gears and everything, which would have been a pain to work with.
Train station, and there's like a lot of different kinds built in Turkey.
This is a Comstock Survivor. There we go.
This is amazing.
Now, over here, we have number 8, the D&T car. And I want to explain something. The coupler is a modern day coupler. Back in 1869, they did not have the safety couplers that we use now. And for example, they had what would be a link and pin system, kind of similar looking to this. You'd have a link, like a giant link out of a chain. You bring it up here, drop it down, and it would put it together. A little bit bigger and more complicated than that, but you get the idea. The danger with the link and pin system is that your timing had to be perfect. So imagine the engine backing up, and you're kind of moving with it. They didn't have this kind of coupler. It's sort of a giant size of that. You got to get the link in the pocket, pull your hand out of the way, and drop the pin down.
Don't want to be that guy.
And hope that the train stops in time. Because if the engineer doesn't stop, either you're going to be shuffling along really fast, or you're going to get run over.
Wow.
By the way, their slogan must have been "Safety last." So yeah, and the braking system, now because we give rides on this car, we have to have air brakes. That's a requirement. But back then they only used hand brakes. Hand brakes are quite effective for stopping a car, but it's a little bit easier with air brakes. And with air brakes, a lot of people think, oh, you put pressure to apply the brake. No, because if a hose ruptures, you can't stop the train. Pressure releases the brakes. You lose pressure, the brakes are applied. So feel free to come on board. We're going to be walking through the baggage section first.
Come on. Whoa.
It's an air vent, and they decorated those. Well, this is a coal stove. In December, first 3 weekends of the month, we have what's called the Santa train. And December can be rather cold. So last year, I was assigned to this car. I was so happy when I got this car. So anyway, the first weekend I put charcoal in and everything, and the stove was barely warm. That's when I learned about the air vents on the bottom. Second weekend, the car was warm. But I'll show you something about the seating.
You can flip it?
Yes. So if, for example, we were going this way, we could flip all the seats so they were all facing forward. We go the other way, we flip it, and we're backward. Or if you like, you'd have 2 and 2, like a family facing each other. So this is a beautiful car. Now,
I love it.
typically the railroads had first class, second class, and third class. I don't know if this is first class or second class. Part of me wants to say it must have been first class, but another part of me says I've seen better, so it might have been second. Did you have a question? Well, she's just waving up.
I like the times. Are we able to sit down?
Yes, have a seat.
Great.
Make yourself comfortable.
Weird.
Yeah, when we have the Santa train, families sit down here. We don't force them to stand up.
That would be nice if I stand in
Now, we do have one car, and unfortunately it's locked, and I'm not supposed to go past the fence with the public. But it's called the workman's car. That's a third class car. And here on this car, at the far end, there's a restroom. You have a water dispenser. You know, and of course the luxury, the velvet seats, very beautiful car. So this is second or first class, I'm not sure which. The workman's car is third class, no doubt about it, because the seats are rather plain, and there used to be in the center a wooden bench, just a piece of wood that was raised up. And if you couldn't get any of the edge seats where you could kind of lean against the wall, you got the center seat with nothing to lean against. And that, no restroom at all. And I think it did have a drink dispenser, but you know, what do you do if you have to go? I don't know. But yeah, rather bland. What extreme difference in the quality of the car and the kind of ride you get. Yeah. Although the good news is the N.T. Railroad wasn't that large, so from one point to another wasn't too bad. Yeah. But I certainly could enjoy riding in this one.
I call dibs on sitting in the back, far back. Okay. This is definitely first class. Oh, wow. Me too.
Sure, everybody gets on before I start.
Yay, a boost.
Now, this is the McKean car made by the McKean Motor Car Company. McKean, the owner of the company, was way ahead of his time. Brilliant man, and the more I study and understand about his design, I realized he was way ahead of his time. Back in the early 1900s, you wanted passenger travel, you had a steam engine, and you had cars behind it. Great system, but it can take us 4 hours to get a steam from cold to operation. And when we're done at the end of the day, it's not like we turn it off and walk away. There's a lot of cleaning, a lot of maintenance required. So there's a lot of labor with steam. Steam, the bare minimum crew is 5 people. McKean understood that if we use a gasoline motor to drive the train, we don't have those problems. Like I said, it can take steam about 4 hours to get it ready. With a motor car, you can be ready in 10 minutes. And at the end of the day, you pull it in, you turn it off, and you walk away just like your car. You know, you don't spend an hour after you're done driving your car. You're not doing stuff. You just turn off the ignition and walk out. So he understood that this was very, very cost effective, number one. But of course, a lot of the railroads didn't quite understand the savings. You know, he had to really sell the idea. The other thing is, you'll notice the front of this car comes to a point. McKean loved ships, and I guess because he could see a ship going through the water, he understood aerodynamics long before anybody else was talking about it. He made it a point because he saw it going through the air, just like a ship going through water. The other thing is, his first 6 cars had rectangular windows like everybody else, but then he went to portholes. Well, why portholes? Well, you have a rubber gasket here, and a few of you may be sitting by a window with a rubber gasket still there. You know, that thing's over 100 years old, and if you push on it, you go, wait, this thing is as hard as a rock. Well, now it is, but when it was new, it was soft and flexible. When you close the window and it squeezes in the rubber gasket, you've got an extremely good seal. Here in Carson City, especially during the winter, we can get some rather nasty cold winds. This car ran from Reno to Minden, Carson City, back and forth. It was like a commuter train. And of summertime, of course, we want the windows open. That was our only air conditioning system. The wintertime, you closed the windows, and he took heat from the engine and pumped it into the cabin. So he didn't need a pot-bellied stove to warm it up. We used the excess heat of the engine to warm up the car. I don't know how well it warmed the car, but it was certainly a lot better than whatever was outside. Now, this particular car, the back section was the non-smoking section. And in 1910, women did not smoke. In fact, if a woman smoked in 1910, she was looked down upon as being a questionable character. So the men smoked, and that's something only men did. So the non-smoking section for the women and children was back here. Logic tells me that it would make sense that this would be the woman's restroom. I mean, why would you put the men's restroom there and the woman's forward? It wouldn't make sense. So I believe that's the woman's restroom. Up front was the smoking section where the men sat. And that particular section probably had the men's restroom. You know, it would make sense. Now, this ran from 1910 to 1945, the last run being October 31st, 1945, Nevada Day Nevada became a state. And they said, okay, that's it, we're done. 1 year later, one individual probably saved this from the scrapyard. He went to the VNT, he knew that they were going to quit using the McKean car, and he says, I'd like to buy it. And they go, so how much? And he goes, how about $1,000? They said, sold. But the deal was they would take off the trucks and the motor and sell that as scrap. He didn't care. He took it to Carson Street, had it set down, took out all the seats, got rid of them, and he put tables in here. And in the front, he put a grill and a counter, you know, like just like many restaurants with this circular stools that go up to the counter. And he made it a restaurant, Denny's restaurant, not the chain Denny's. I don't think it existed back then, just right. Denny's. And so he had his restaurant, and after him, somebody else bought it. It became, I think it was Super Chief, and after that, somebody else bought it, and it became the V&T Diner or something like that. So it was actually 3 different diners. And then from there, Al's Plumbing bought it and used it as office space. Which, in a way, I'm glad that happened, because had nobody bought it, the V&T would have sold it for scrap.
That's enough.
And we wouldn't have this. So after Al's Plumbing, it was donated to the museum. But it had, you know, a lot of years had passed.
Been through the ringer.
Yeah, it'd been through the ringer. And so it took about 13 years and over $1 million worth of labor and parts and everything, because we had to find things. For example, the lights themselves, many were missing, and so we had to take what we had and make bowls out of them and make our own brass lamps. based like the original. There was a lot of studying of the historic documents, photographs, and everything to try to replicate all the woodwork and everything to make sure, and the artwork on the interior. So it was an amazing amount of restoration. Of the 152 McKean cars that were ever built by the McKean Motor Car Company, only a handful exist in any form. This is the only McKean car in the world that runs. There is a group in San Diego, they got a McKean car from Alaska. They are trying to restore it, and I wish them the best of luck. Maybe in another 10 or 20 years they might have it. But yeah, it's just a labor of love. And I'm sorry that I don't have better lighting in here right now, where you could really, if you have a light on your cell phone, definitely want to hit the flashlight and kind of shine around and see some of the beautiful work that's in here. It's just fine craftsmanship. They started off from Carson City, they went up the hill and made it to the Gold Hill station and discovered the car is so big they couldn't get past the Gold Hill station. The roof stuck out too far. So they had to back it down,